It's Thursday, April 1. This is the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The Ministry of Health and Wellness will be coordinating another mass vaccination program this Saturday. The first was held at the National Arena in Kingston last weekend. However, more inoculation stations will be opened across the island. Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Christopher Tufton, gave an update during a virtual COVID-19 conversation on Thursday.
This vaccination blitz on Saturday will involve all that took place last Saturday, except an additional variable which will seek to respond to the hesitancy of that age cohort by deploying and coordinating with the political organizations in the respective constituencies across, in this initial instance, across 5 constituencies in the corporate area. So we are working with Members of Parliament Philip Paulwell, Members of Parliament Julian Robinson, Member of Parliament Angela Brown-Burke, Member of Parliament and Minister Desmond McKenzie, and MP Williams. Central Kingston, MP Williams. So what we have done is basically chosen 5 catchment areas, if you will. And we are working with the MPs and their organization, and they have an organization on the ground that has served them well. Clearly, they are members of Parliament. They have been elected. With the electoral office to provide information on persons who fall in that age cohort, and working with them to give support, whether through town criers or mobilization support, to identify persons, but not just to identify persons, but to use that organization and the influence of that organization to convince persons on the value and the importance of coming out. So there's a little reasoning that have to take place. And one of the things that we've tried to do is to provide that support. Now, it's a template that we're trying. I know sometimes many persons are impatient that we need to move faster, but we don't want to roll out and create chaos.
Health workers, members of the security forces, and the elderly are being asked to make their appointments online at the Health Ministry's website or call 888-1-LOVE. Persons who have gotten their first jabs of COVID-19 vaccine must continue to observe all infection prevention and control measures such as wearing of mask, maintaining physical distance of 6 feet or more, and frequently washing hands with soap and water or use hand sanitizers. 2 persons have been taken to hospital after suffering an allergic reaction to the COVID-19 vaccine since the start of inoculation. Director of Family Health Services in the Ministry of Health and Wellness, Dr. Melody Innes, says the individuals were treated and released. Dr. Innes was part of a team which included the Chief Medical Officer, Jacqueline Bessessa McKenzie, that gave an update on the COVID-19 vaccine implementation during a joint select committee on Wednesday.
We continue to monitor the events that are supposedly attributed to vaccination or immunization, and we have collected just about 40 of those. Most of the persons reported having the expected side effects of the vaccine, which includes the flu-like illness, the real feeling of being tired, some amount of headache and dizziness. All of those persons have resolved within the 72-hour time frame that is allotted for that. We had just about 2 persons who we considered serious who had to be treated at hospital just for allergic reactions, and they too have resolved and certainly gone home.
Although COVID-19 patients are being treated and released, the island's hospitals are still under pressure. The Health Ministry's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Jacqueline Bessessa McKenzie, gave an update on the situation.
So essentially, we would have had beds that were dedicated to COVID. And once those are full, then of course we would resort to using beds, general beds on the general wards. So it's not, and we have had few instances where we have had over 100% general occupancy and over 100% isolation capacity. What that usually means is that we have persons waiting in the emergency rooms for admission. And so other spaces, what we have seen is that we have expanded, particularly when you look at a hospital like Spanish Town Hospital, their entire waiting area has been converted now to bed space. So you would not have those as documented beds, but a space would have been found and the persons would have been nursed in that area. So that is what happens.
Dr. Enos urged persons with underlying illnesses to take the vaccine, and she spoke about what to do in instances where it can be a risk.
If you have any cardiovascular problem, hypertension, any heart disease in your respiratory system, if you have asthma, emphysema, bronchitis, you are to take the vaccine. If you are having lupus, you're immunocompromised, you have lupus, multiple sclerosis, you are to take the vaccine, because persons who have these underlying conditions and get COVID-19, they do much worse. Often they are hospitalized and even die. Now, if also we speak to persons who are HIV, persons who are otherwise immunocompromised, when do they ask their doctors? Now, if any of these conditions are uncontrolled and the persons are extremely ill, then we wouldn't want to be vaccinating them unless they have spoken to their physician. I know what comes up a lot are persons with cancer, and they are very concerned because they may be on chemotherapy or even radiotherapy. Now again, if these persons are well, they can be vaccinated. However, if you are receiving intravenous immunosuppressive therapy, so if you're getting any IV medication to lower your immune system, then you cannot get the vaccine for a minimum of 14 days after this type of treatment. So for those persons who are on that kind of therapy, they need to be in close dialogue with their clinicians, and we do appreciate if a letter could be written when they appear at the vaccination site, just for our inoculators to see that they have had dialogue with their physicians and they have been given the green light to be vaccinated. But outside of that, once you have a comorbid condition and it's controlled, you're on your medication, yes, you are to be vaccinated.
The Planning Institute of Jamaica's Community Renewal Index, CRI 2020, is aimed at improving access to empirical data to inform decision-making for community development. That's the word from Director General of the PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry. He was speaking at a virtual EU Government of Jamaica conference this week. Here's more in this report. Monitoring and Evaluation Specialist with the Community Renewal Program, Marsha Watson-Hilton, first explains what CRI means.
The Community Renewal Index is a single number that establishes the ranking or position of communities along a renewal continuum from 0, least renewed, to 100, most renewed. It was designed specifically for our volatile and vulnerable communities to enable us to ascertain whether or not they're moving towards renewal status.
Director General of the PIOJ, Dr. Wayne Henry, says such statistics have not been consistently available.
Unfortunately, data at the community level has never been consistently available, and often not with the level of detail required to make certain policy decisions. It is in this context that we regard the launch of the CRI as a pivotal milestone, not only for the functioning of our organization, but as a tool that may be used among the government, private sector, NGOs, and international development partners to achieve more effective and better targeted interventions in communities across Jamaica.
Dr. Henry says the CRI will help address the gap in available data at the community level.
This should contribute significantly to the wider development of Jamaica as it supports the leaving no one behind agenda.
According to the statistics, of the 100 most volatile and vulnerable communities in Jamaica, about 43 are in Kingston and St. Andrew. The index was applied to 17 of these in 2020 to establish a baseline for future references as to their renewal status. Program Director Charles Clayton details the benefits of the CRI.
Many agencies have found it challenging to be able to measure their outputs and connect these outputs to the community level development and even more so to the national level. Our third point is that we have never been able to properly measure what a developed community looks like and how we can compare communities against communities using standardized data. It is against this background that the Community Renewal Program embarked on a process of developing a tool that would be able to provide measurement in these areas. And so the result was the development of the Community Renewal Index.
The Community Renewal Index is to be produced every 2 years and will give indication on how secure, prosperous, healthy, and just Jamaica's communities are. Road improvement projects in the southeastern and southwestern sections of Jamaica are partially underway. The projects will cost $384 million US. Of the sum, $57 million will be provided by the Jamaican government. The works in the southeastern end of the island will cover construction of a 4-lane highway from Harborview to Bull Bay in St. Andrew, with upgrading of the road between Bull Bay and Morant Bay in St. Thomas. A recent visit to the Bull Bay area showed works being under construction, roadworks that is, and the thoroughfare from Morant Bay to Cedar Valley and from Morant Bay to Port Antonio will also be improved. Rehabilitation work is being done on Marverly Drive in Yalas in Western St. Thomas. Councillor John Lee is expressing gratitude for the work being done.
I am standing on the ground of Marverly Drive, the road that leads from the square onto Newland. Over 25 years, this road haven't get any attention. I just want to say thanks to Mayor Yu and Minister Mackenzie for giving me the green light and getting this road rehabilitated. The residents, along with myself, are happy that we are actually getting a road that we can drive on comfortable to and fro. If the square should block, this is the only alternative to take you out of the square.
Motorists will pay more at the pumps this week. We get those and other details in this quick business report with Gabriel Thompson.
According to the latest ex-refinery costs from state-owned oil refinery Petrojam, motorists should see an increase at the pumps in the prices of gasoline and a decrease in the price of diesel effective Thursday, April 1. 87 and 90 octane gasoline will be sold for $136.70 and $139.53 per liter respectively, up by $1.26 each. Automotive diesel fuel will be sold for $127.25 per liter, following a decrease of 25 cents, while ultra-low sulfur diesel is down by 77 cents and will be sold for $131.13 per liter. Meanwhile, kerosene decreased in price by 25 cents and will be sold for $101.53 per liter. Propane liquid petroleum will be sold for $54.26 per liter, up by 36 cents, and butane liquid petroleum will be sold for $53.37 per liter, following a decrease of 25 cents. Expect price changes as marketing companies and retailers will add their respective markup to these prices. In Wednesday's trading session, the JSE combined index advanced by 2,040 points to close at under 400,000 units. Overall, market activity resulted from trading in 82 stocks, of which 42 advanced, 28 declined, and 12 traded firm. The junior market index advanced by 13 points to close at under 3,000 units. Stocks advanced for 138 Student Living Variable Preference, 1834 Investments Limited, and Access Financial Services Limited. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica, Siboney Group Limited, and Derrimon Trading Company Limited. Trading firm were Dolphin Cove Limited, Epley 7.5% preference shares, and Express Catering Limited. Derrimon Trading Company Limited was the volume leader with 10.6 million units, followed by Trans-Jamaican Highway Limited with 6.5 million units, and Wigton Wind Farm Limited ordinary shares with over 2.6 million units. In foreign exchange trading for Wednesday, March 31, the US dollar ended trading at $146.58. The Canadian dollar sold for an average $120.15. The pound sterling traded for $202.83, and the euro ended trading at $174.40. Oil prices rose on Thursday on optimism about the strength of US and European economies and hopes that OPEC and its allies will keep production curbs in place. Brent crude oil futures rose $1.33 to $64.07 a barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude futures added $1.36 to $60.52 a barrel. And that does it for the Thursday edition of the Business Report Inside the News on PBCJ. I'm Gabrielle Thompson. Pleasant viewing.
If you're hoping for some rest and relaxation in Kingston while enjoying traditional Jamaican dishes with a contemporary twist, the City View Hotel is the perfect place to be. Tastefully decorated with incredibly welcoming and attentive team serving meals and catering to all diets. That's where we pulled over in this week's edition of Culinary Trails.
This was built as a dream home, my wife and myself, and we had planned, we started building it in our 30s. It was completed when we were about 41, completed. And the plan was to sell it about the age we are now, because we don't want a big house when we, get old. The house, the property was our major asset. We didn't want to sell it, so we conceptualized a business from it. And at the time we said, well, Jamaicans overseas will always want to come home. So we conceptualized a kind of a home away from home, target market, Jamaicans overseas, and naturally, for want of a better word, the local market would be also. So happy to say that is now working. That is now working. Other is weddings. I remember when I just came home, I used to go down to Manchester, where I'm from, almost every Sunday. And driving on Mandela Highway, there used to be a cluster of bougainvilleas. And persons used to go there taking pictures after weddings. So the idea came to me driving one Sunday. I said, a venue for wedding at City View. In fact, it wasn't known as City View at the time. And then I said, Jamaican food is renowned globally. Renowned globally. So I said, a Jamaican restaurant with a difference. Turn Bob Marley into jazz, so to speak. Create something from what we have. Yeah? And I said, we have some of the finest entertainers in the world and the influence we have musically in the world. So I said, a venue for wedding, a home away from home for persons, a restaurant with Jamaican cuisine, creating from what we have, and entertainment, live entertainment. must say this without any apology. Without my wife, this could never have happened. Never have happened. In every negative, there's a positive. And I'm seeing all the positive in this COVID. City View Hotel is not a venue that persons can just drive off the street and go and sit in a car park and whatever. Or else it'll be full out of people every day. You only come to City View Hotel if you're doing business. So you can't just drive. So it's a private, it's secluded, you know. In the daytime, you come to City View Hotel, you feel a sense of tranquility. And it's a fact. All right? The first time that I personally ever experienced ambiance is when we had the first event here at City View Hotel. The ambiance, there's an ambiance, you know. So these are facts, you know. If you want action and whatever, it's not City View. It's a romantic, secluded venue. City View is ready. We have the staff, we have the venue, we have all the amenities.
Here are some of the stories making headlines across our region. Police in the Bahamas will be clamping down on crowded beaches, parties and other gatherings over the Easter weekend. Our News' Jasmine Brown reports.
In anticipation of the long holiday weekend, Police Commissioner Paul Worrell says police will be beefing up their presence across the country in a bid to clamp down on large gatherings.
But the police are going to be out and making sure that everybody is safe.
With photos and videos of large crowds gathering on the beach in recent days, Worrell says keeping an eye on the coastlines will be critical.
We'll be out onto the beaches and in the community, and I want to also encourage persons to abide by the rules. That way we don't have to force that and enforce it. We want people to be able to enjoy themselves on the beaches and just simply abide by the rules.
The Ministry of Health reported last week that there was a marked increase in new COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations on New Providence, Grand Bahama, and Abaco. Officials are also worried that Grand Bahama will likely see a third wave of the virus.
Every Bahamian citizen, resident, and visitor must take responsibility, personal responsibility, first of all for their own safety and for the safety of others. The police are going to do their part, but I don't want to make this a police-centric thing because it's the people who are refusing to abide, and then you find in a few days later persons are falling sick.
The RBPF has not gone unscathed by the pandemic, as dozens of officers have been infected with the virus over the last year. Worrell says the most recent case of COVID was confirmed just this morning.
We are doing the follow-up to make sure that nobody else is infected in those areas.
Now the commissioner says police will be keeping a close eye on those gatherings, not only during the holiday weekend, but also throughout the pandemic. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Over in Cuba, 2 vaccines being manufactured by that country are now in a crucial clinical stage of trials. Those vaccines are Soberana and Abdala. Richard Richards reports.
2 Cuban vaccine candidates against COVID-19, named Soberana 2 and Abdala, have entered their decisive phase of clinical trials. More than 90,000 Cubans are already participating in the clinical third trials of the candidate vaccines, Soberana 2 and Abdala. Another 150,000 will be added in the coming days and weeks in an authorized intervention trial in risk groups. According to the FinLife Vaccine Institute, the candidate vaccines are being produced on a large scale for these last tests. Cuba has become the only Latin American country and third world nation that has reached this stage with a couple of injectable antidotes and 3 other candidates in earlier stages of development. Until now, results have been said to be positive, according to scientists and health specialists observing the latest development in the matter. All 5 applicable immunizers were developed by Cuba in the framework of the fight against the deadly pandemic that touched the island the 11th of March 2020. Cuba has more than 30 years' experience in the production of vaccines and has already produced vaccines against lung cancer and meningitis, among other diseases. Out of the 13 vaccines used until now in the island, 70% of them are manufactured here locally. During the past month of March, Cuba sent 150,000 doses of the Soberana vaccine to Mexico for phase trial 3 and another 100,000 doses with the same purpose to the Republic of Iran in the Middle East. During this month of April, 30,000 doses is expected in Venezuela to continue proving its efficiency. Next month, June, Cuba will begin inoculating the drugs in all its inhabitants, and by the end of August, about 6 million people should be vaccinated. The 31st of December 2021, the Cuban population should be totally immunized against COVID-19. Today, Cuba has 22 molecular biology laboratories throughout its 14 provinces, having started with only 4 at the beginning of the pandemic. The government has not spared expenses so as to ensure that labs, chemicals, and medias are present in these installations. All the necessary kits and materials for PCR tests are wholly made in Cuba and with local materials. Cuba have provided their own formulations for reagents, means of transport, and swabs. In spite of the United States of America's financial and commercial blockade, Cuban scientists and technicians have been able to produce high-capacity ventilators and other medical instruments, thus avoiding the government from spending hundreds of millions of dollars in purchasing such equipment from developed countries. Since the entrance of the pandemic in Cuba, midst of March 2020, the country has gone through nearly 3 million PCR tests that has resulted in over 75,000 confirmed positive cases with the virus. 95% of those COVID-19 patients have totally recovered. Meanwhile, the death toll has risen to 424, according to the last update on the 30th of March 2021. Before the end of this year, Cuba will produce 100 million doses of vaccine against COVID-19. Our Caribbean neighbors and other poor countries in Africa and worldwide can count on the Cuban solidarity system designed especially to lend them a hand. Venezuela, Vietnam, India, Iran, Pakistan, Syria, Italy, Canada, Jamaica, and Mexico, among others, have already shown their interest for these Cuban vaccines. Unlike some other vaccines, the Cuban ones do not require deep freezing nor any other special means of transportation out of the normal standards, so this makes the Cuban drugs a better economic option for the so-called underdeveloped countries. Direct from Cuba, for the PBCJ, Richards, Canal Caribe.
In news in the world of sports, St. Andrew Technical High School celebrates their 60th Diamond Jubilee anniversary in 2021. In commemoration, the school will be hosting a virtual 5K run walk in April. This was covered in a recent launch put on by STATHS Trust Fund. Alan Beckford, as well as chairman of the organization committee Barrington Johnson, spoke of the event.
The idea behind the 5K was that since as the school was celebrating 60th anniversary, and there would have been what we'd call a major gala banquet, we had to find another way to raise funds because we have to keep feeding the funds in a regular way. At first, a physical activity was proposed, but as we are all here now, we had a virtual launch this morning. The idea was floated again that we should look at how do we achieve our objective by holding the fundraiser, recognizing that COVID with us. And as the buzzword saying that you have to pivot. So we pivoted from a physical to a virtual. That gave us the opportunity now to be all inclusive. And what do I mean by that? It means that rather than we had a physical constraints of just Jamaica alone, of where the school is domiciled at Bumperall, we could now go global.
How can persons participate in this virtual event?
To enter a virtual race, it is pretty straightforward. One goes to the website, which is my.raceresult.com. You look for the STATHS Trust Virtual Run. You click on that link, you register, and you will have a number of contests that you can enter. We have a push-up contest, a dance contest, we have a 5K, we have the run and the walk. And if you feel that you really don't want to participate, you can just donate as well too. But remember, you can also donate if you enter an event by adding an amount. So it's a very good cause, so we hope you'll come out and support.
St. Andrew Technical High School Trust is a non-profit charitable foundation established by a group of past students almost 15 years ago for the support, maintenance and advancement of the school. And that's our package. On behalf of our production team, we wish you a safe and holy Easter.